Well, let's see if anybody shows up tonight. I'm hoping we have at least a couple people. An average of two or three. It'd be nice if a few more folks showed up. Have a nice little group conversation. Begin to enjoy these live chats. And if someone does join in, please let me know if the audio and the video is up to par because last night it was a little terrible to be honest with you. All right. After work Tylenol, check. Scraps from the restaurant I worked at poured out in the hog pen, and the goats eating the lettuce, and the hog eating the bread and the hamburger meat and chicken strips. Check. I think there might have even been some bacon in there. So I guess Patty's having dinner with relatives. Or should I say relatives for dinner? But I scheduled this for 11, and well, now it's 11. So I was a little early, which means I'm on time because if I say I'm going to be there at 11 and I'm there at 11, I consider myself late. Let's see if somebody shows up tonight. It's just a shame that I don't get off until 10, and it takes me till 10:30 to get home because it'd be really nice if I could do these around 9 or so after all these other big channels get through with theirs, and then I could do something and maybe catch a few people before they go to bed because I know out west, I'm on the East Coast, so it's 10 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the other time zones. So maybe we'll get a few visitors to stop in and chat for a little while. Some East Coast night owls. The last couple nights I've done this, there's only been just two or three. Oh, it's saying someone's here. How you doing, whoever you are? Hadn't gotten you up there in the participant list yet. This says it's me, and I know I'm watching because I see me. I was hoping somebody would stop by and want to talk about gardening. I appreciate the thumbs up. I was just talking to myself for the last few minutes. I just got home from work and fed the pig some leftovers from Hardee's. Hey, Virginia, how you doing? Hope you've had a pretty good day because it's been a rainy start to my day, and then I had to go to work this evening, and I'm just well, not ready for bed. It take me a little while to get relaxed and ready, but whenever I go to bed, I'm gonna sleep good tonight. And then I got to get up in the morning, go to class, and then come home and start on the chicken run that I got to build. I don't know if you saw the video I put out today or not, but I've decided that I'm just going to move all that stuff out of the way and just expand that way with the chicken run and make it a little bit bigger. I had wind and rain this morning. A lot of wind and rain. It went from 70 degrees when I woke up to around 58 degrees around noon, and then warmed back up to the mid 70s before I went to work. And the whole time the temperature was dropping, it was raining, and the wind was just blowing trash all over the place. I've got beer cans all in my yard that people threw out on the side of the road last night. I had the goats free ranging in the yard, and they decided they were going to dump out a bag of potting soil on the front porch. And then when I go out to get in my car to go to work, there's a goat on top of my car, not on the hood, on the roof. They do some of the craziest things. But not much I'm going to do to them. I can't punish them. They're hopefully expecting. They're starting to swell up on the right side. Left side is lunch, right side is baby, and they're starting to put on a little bit of weight and fatten up. So I'm hoping I got two of them that's going to kid in April. That would be great, especially if I get a little buck out of it. Then I'll line. It's called line breeding if it's successful. It's called inbreeding if it's not successful. But I've introduced some Kiko into my Nubian herd. Yeah, I'm hoping they throw twins, but I don't know if they will or not. One of them kidded earlier in the year, last year, back in November, and then I rebred her right after the kid was weaned, and I traded the kid to breed with Kikos. So I bred two of my does with Kikos. Yeah, and I'm hoping that she throws twins. I don't know what the other one will throw because I don't know if she's ever been pregnant. I know she's young, but she may have had kids before. I don't know, but if I just get one from her, I'll be happy. That's the mischievous one that always follows me around and actually listens to me, and that's Billy Two Udders. The only one I have that's been dehorned. Because personally, I'm not going to dehorn any of my goats. They can just keep their horns. I don't care about dehorning them. I've seen it done where they cut them out, and I've seen it done where they burn them off. And I wouldn't want anybody doing that to me, so I'm not going to do it to them. Besides, if the good Lord didn't want them to have horns, they'd be born without growing them. So I'll leave them the way they are. Just like people docking a puppy's tail or something like that, unless it's for a health reason, nah, I leave them alone. I see no sense in putting an animal through that senseless pain just because you think it makes them look better. If they really look better, the Lord would have made them that way to begin with, but that's a whole other story and topic. But if you haven't seen my video, I've got some English peas starting to sprout, and I've only got two chickens left out, so or three. I should have caught them whenever I came in from work, but I was ready to get inside. No, they don't try to ram me, but they do make good handles whenever you try to catch one that doesn't want you to touch them. Just grab a hold and hang on. And if you ever have to give them a shot or something like that, you can take and get their horns behind your arm, and they can't get away from you. And it said I'm showing 3 viewers, but they only list me and the participants. I wonder what's up with YouTube. Hmm. I'll take the 3 and consider that to be true. There's no telling with YouTube. Their numbers don't add up to 100 as far as I'm concerned. Because my analytics, they're all screwy. I can check the dashboard and it'll say I have 124 subscribers, and then I can check it 20 minutes later and it'll say I have 122, and I can go and check and see if I lost any subscribers, and I haven't lost any. It's like, well, where did the 2 go? Yeah, YouTube tends to play a lot of games, especially whenever it comes to people being monetized. Because they love us small channels that have a hard time getting monetized, because they're going to put that ad in front of our video. They're going to make money off of us, but they don't want to give us any money of it. And we're the reason why they're making the money. Yeah, I've had to resubscribe to a few of them. Hey, Stacy, how you doing? No, I'm not too much of the vampire. I'm a little pale like one, but that's about as far as it goes. I'll keep the other comments to myself because they might not be community friendly according to YouTube. Or I could be like the Count from Sesame Street and just go, ah, 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 ah. Yeah, YouTube's all about making money for themselves. They don't care about us. Yeah, Stacy, I kind of get the feeling I've got an internet stalker and her name is Stacy. You comment a lot on my stuff, and to tell you the truth, I kind of appreciate it because at least I know somebody's watching and they appreciate what videos I make and stuff like that, because folks these days, they want to see young, pretty people making videos like the Hollers from the Holler Homestead. That's what they want to see. And these people don't know what they're doing. They're just learning as they go and acting like they really know what they're doing. You know, I'm more like Danny off of Deep South Homestead. I'm old school. I know what I'm doing. If you want to learn something, ask me and I'll show you and I'll help you. But they don't want to see me. I'm an old ugly guy. They want to see the young pretty people. But I did have an idea today that I'm thinking about going around to all the retirement homes and nursing homes and start to interview a lot of the older people there that are living there and getting their stories about growing up and how they used to garden to survive and grow food and make money, and their times in the military and stuff like that for whenever I get back in school and do my master's degree. I'll have a lot of primary source information. Yeah, seasoned. I got a feeling if I'm ever going to be described as a seasoned, I would probably be salty. Yeah, I thought so, because if I'm going for my master's in history, I'll have a whole wealth of primary source information at my fingertips. So whenever I narrow down a thesis topic, I will be able to go back and pick through those videos. And then a lot of these people, after they pass away, I'll copy their interview and I'll send it to the Georgia State Historical Society so they can archive it. But a lot of people, I knew one fellow that was a World War II vet, and he would tell me stories of some of the things that he did in Germany after the war. And they had one Russian soldier that just kept harassing their side of the borderline of the territory they were occupying. Well, he got tired of this Russian soldier taking pot shots at him all the time, so he just snuck across the line with his Thompson 45 caliber submachine gun and basically cut the man in half with it. And he never wanted any of us to tell that story because it was only me and my brother-in-law. We were in high school at the time. We were the only ones he ever told that to, and he didn't want us telling folks because he didn't. Even at 86 years old, he didn't want to get in trouble. So I would do them the courtesy of not doing that until after they passed away. Then I would donate it to the Historical Society. Yeah, I try to remember a lot of my grandfather's stories. I wish I've got to get my mom to refresh my memory on one. It was about going to the fair, and a drunk guy got on the swings, the big ones that go round and round, and it made him sick, and he threw up, and it just kind of went across the whole fairgrounds. I'll have to get her to remind me of all the details because my grandfather was a character. He had a sense of humor and never had to use bad language, but he was funny as all get out. And that's a lot where I get my sense of humor from is him. My grandfather never, ever mentioned the war. Not one time. He was a truck driver. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had some hairy situations and he may have seen limited combat action, but he was a truck driver, what they called the Red Eye Express. It was one great big circle where you would take a load from this camp to that camp. You would pick up, drop it off, pick up something there to go to the next camp. And you just made a continuous big circle. And I'm sure he saw plenty of horrific sights. And he never once told a story about his times. And it wasn't until the very late 1980s, and he died in the mid 1990s. And in the late 1980s, he started going to the reunions of his fellow company mates, and they would get together and you know they would talk about old times. But he never once mentioned anything to the family. Hey, V. Dot Honey, I think that's how you say your name. How you doing tonight? I've got my grandfather's discharge papers from whenever he was discharged after the war, and he penciled in, "We give them Krauts hell," and that's all he wrote about. And I've got his last pay record and a few other odds and ends, and that's it. I mean, he had had a massive stroke after a heart attack before he passed away. He lived probably about 4 months after the heart attack and the stroke before he passed away. And my sister asked him, Elizabeth, glad to know the name Elizabeth. I'm trying to remember that. But my sister asked him, he couldn't speak. All he could do was move his eyes left and right and up and down. And she asked him, Grandpa, are you at ease with what you did during the war? And he moved his eyes up and down, yes. He was at ease and he was at peace with it. So, which he was a good Christian man. And small town that I live in, his funeral was standing room only. I mean, the whole county came out for this man's burial. He was that well loved and respected. Well, if you ever get an opportunity to do some video interviews with him, do that. Get in touch with me. I'll let you know how to get them to me, and I will be glad to have them because it doesn't matter if they're local. Because I've even thought about going to the neighboring towns and stuff. You know, anyone that was in the military or any branch of the service, wartime or not. You know, I'd like to hear those stories of their experiences defending our country, and I'd like to hear stories about how they grew up. You know, how they, because everybody back then gardened, and that's how they lived year to year. They got paid once a year, and then they paid off their creditors for borrowing money to go plant their crops. And you know, you made a trip to town 2 or 3 times a year. You were lucky. My dad is 86, and he said they might have went to town 3 or 4 times a year. Definitely, if you get an opportunity to video an interview or two with him and get him to tell some stories, I would be greatly appreciative to have those because I intend on this. I don't know what my master's thesis will be. It'll either be about historical agriculture or military history because we don't have very many World War II vets left, and I would love to get as much as I can on that generation. And Korean vets, I'd love to get as much as I can on those guys also. You know, primary source is what they call it whenever it comes straight from the horse's mouth, and that's what I'd love to do. Yeah, I subscribe to a couple of those, and that's part of the way I got the idea, you know. And I think there's a lot more that needs to be done because we're losing these heroes at an alarming rate. The youngest ones are in their early 80s now, and those were the ones that were 16 and 17 and 45 and 46 after the war had ended and joined up, you know. And I'd like to get any any story I can from any of these guys. You know, I just don't think enough of that history is put down on something to record it for posterity. Exactly. History not yet written in a book because history is a tricky thing. History is written by people, and a lot of people have their own slant. If he ran up the beaches of Normandy, Stacy, please get me a video interview. I would love to hear all about it because the guys who went across Normandy had the roughest time of all of them. I know of Canadian veterans, they were on Juno Beach, I think, and they were riding bicycles. They had no opposition. It was nothing like the Americans faced. The Americans faced the worst of it, and then one section of the British invasion, they had a pretty good bit of resistance, but there were a lot of areas that had very little, if any, resistance, and they just basically walked ashore. But the Americans, they fought tooth and nail for every inch of ground they got. and I would love to hear his story about it. We just lost a local veteran that he was a Normandy vet, and he talked about his time, and he was in the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes also, and I've got the article from the newspaper where they interviewed him, and it was really interesting. But I never got a chance to actually sit down with him myself before he passed away recently, and I'm kicking myself in the ass for that one because I really wanted to sit down and talk to him. And personally, I didn't like the man because the last time I worked at Hardee's, he would go in the bathroom and take a dump, and somehow or another, every time he did, it would get on the damn walls. But the story of his experiences over there, I did want to know about. Write them down, whatever you can remember. Get it down on paper, or either sit down with a video camera and just start talking about everything that he told you. It's not a primary source information at that point, but it is still close to the original. And it hasn't had a chance to be distorted by any other point of view from the way another historian might write it, because historians write history in the point of view of their own agenda, just like CNN versus Fox News. I mean, I'm not one of those people. I'm more objective. I mean, I see things in black and white. It is what it is. So if we won, we won. If we lost, we lost. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Yep, he's right. You can't catch more flies with honey than vinegar. That is for sure. Getting old is not for the faint-hearted, but oddly enough, it's a fact of life, and we're all going to get old. Whenever I was a teenager, I never once pictured myself at this age, but here I am. It's funny, the little people thing says I've got 5 folks viewing, and I only have 2 in the chat, and none show up in participants. That's crazy. YouTube. Yeah, one day I'm going to write a book about growing up in the South because just in my short lifetime, things have changed dramatically. There used to be a little roadside park down from the high school that I went to. Every morning, me and a couple buddies would ride to school together, and we'd go down to that little roadside park. We'd smoke us a big old fat joint, and then we'd go to school. Well, this one kid, we got revenge on his dad because his dad was a cop, and his dad knew whenever the one of us got our allowance because he came from a family that had a little bit more money than most folks, and he always bought the weed. And this guy figured out whenever the guy had his allowance and bought the weed, and he would roll up that day behind us, and we should have been smart enough to go somewhere else after the first time or two it happened. But he would take our damn joint, and he would take the boy's sack of weed, send us to school, and then you'd see the smoke going out the car, went out of his patrol car's window as we're turning around going back to the school that's a quarter of a mile down the road. That son of a bitch smoking our damn weed. Man, it made us mad. But we were too damn stupid to go somewhere else. All because it was right there close to the school and we could get there quick before the bell rang. But I've got a ton of stories that I need to start writing down. We used to have a game to see who could collect the most stop signs. And me and my brother-in-law, we'd win because we wouldn't go and unbolt the stop signs. We would take his old beat-up truck, back over them, and knock them down and throw the sign post and all. We did it in front of the one police officer in Nichols, Georgia. Didn't know he was there until after we had already run over the sign, got out, threw it in the back of the truck, and was driving off. And the cop did not pull us over. There's no way in hell any of those two stories would fly today. None. They would have thrown us under the jail. Whenever I go, just wrap me in a burlap sack, toss me in a river. I'll feed the turtles and the fish. They got to eat too. Hey, Kelly Stevens, how you doing? Yep, I smoked weed before school, and I won't deny it. And if you handed me one right now, I'd probably take a hit off of it because I ain't got no problem with anybody smoking any weed. I don't want to be around a drunk, and I don't want to be around a crackhead, a cokehead, or any of that. If somebody's smoking weed, I ain't got a problem with it. As a matter of fact, the reason why I'm having to do this school in the next county over to get my GPA up is because whenever I moved to a 4-year college across the state, I wound up hanging out with the pothead crowd, and I hung out with real hippies from the 60s who wore tie dye and drove the VW microbuses. They were still out roaming the country. They called them rainbow gatherings, where 2 or 3 thousand of them would just gather up at one place certain times of the year when the weather was right. I mean, you'd see naked people walking all over the place. It was hippies everywhere, and all you had to do was carry a bowl and a spoon. You didn't have to worry about food or nothing because they would come up with a way to feed you. You carry your own weed, just lock your car doors so nobody'd steal anything. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen was a big old fat woman that had a baby under one arm. She's topless, titties hanging down to her knees, and she's arguing with a park ranger who's got long hair and a ponytail down to his butt. I can da 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 da. I can do it. I can smoke weed all I want to. La di da di da da di. And the dude's looking at her saying, "I'm not arguing that point. If I weren't on duty, I would smoke one with you, but you can't go over there. Stay away from that area. That is already reserved for another group of people." And that was the whole point. But she was just arguing away. It's funny as crap. Hey, I've got deer off the side of the road myself. Especially if I knew they were just hit. Well, we clean them in a heartbeat. Throw it in the back of the truck, carry it, dress it out. Wouldn't be but just a little bit of meat that was all bruised up that you had to throw away, and the rest of it was good. We didn't waste it. We got lucky at my place today, Kelly. It rained this morning, but it was mostly wind, and I might have only had a quarter of an inch of rain. So my mud is still muddy, but it's not as muddy, and it's still kind of drying up. My English peas are starting to come up. My Irish potatoes are starting to come up. I've got my chickens pinned up except for about 3, and tomorrow afternoon I got to start working on the next chicken run to expand it because I just needed a few chickens and I wound up with over 60. I'm not going to comment on that, Stacy, but I will say I'm agreeable with most of everything you say. If I can get one, I will smoke it, and I don't have to worry about taking my anxiety medicine. I ain't got to worry about somebody pissing me off. I ain't got to worry about taking my pain medicine. The government needs to step back and relax on that crap, and then they wouldn't have this opioid crisis they got with all these people dying from overdoses of prescription pain meds. Because to tell you the truth, if they could legalize weed in my state, or at least medicinally for chronic pain, I would start growing my own and smoking it, and I wouldn't give a damn, and I wouldn't have to have doctor bills and bills at the pharmacy. I spent over $2,000 this past year just in doctor bills and prescriptions for anxiety and pain. And if I could have grown my own weed and smoked it, I would have had over $2,000 in my pocket right now. Oh yeah, these were the rainbows. They're still out there. Their kids are doing it, and grandkids. I mean, they're they're basically modern day gypsies. They just travel around. You know, they're just hippies. And I spent about 2 years off and on going to gatherings. I've been to gatherings in Georgia, Florida, Alabama. You know, I went to several of the big ones where there were a couple thousand people there. You know, and the ugly people you didn't want to see naked, but some of them I didn't mind seeing naked. You know, everybody was friendly. They had one rule: if you wanted to drink, you went to A camp. That was at the bottom of the hill. Everywhere else was weed only. They didn't allow any other drugs, just weed. You get kicked out quick for being drunk in the wrong place or having anything other than weed. Yep, I've been smoking since I was about 16. Been smoking a long time, and I prefer to grow my own. But normally, I don't get to grow it very often because I always live where there's too many eyeballs around. But this year, I might grow me a couple because I can take some plain old cheap ass mid grade dirt weed and grow something good out of the seed. The genes are there. It's the way you take care of the plant. But at the same time, if I get hold of some good stuff and I know it's good, don't think I won't try to crossbreed and come up with something even better. Oh, I ain't got stage fright neither. I don't give a damn. I go out in my front yard and there's a highway there and I'll pee. And if a car comes by, I'll wave at them while I'm peeing. Hold it with one hand, wave with the other, and smile. How you doing? Honk the horn if you want to. I don't care. Yeah, I've even got a small church down the road. Yeah, Colorado, California, I think Oregon and Washington, Maine, Florida has medicinal. Georgia has medicinal, but it's a lot of restrictions on it. It's CBD mostly, no THC in it. Um, I think there's one or two more states. In the next 10 years, it's going to be legal nationwide. Yeah, I don't travel with it only because I'm not taking a chance on going to jail. That happened to me not long ago. I shook a black man's hand, and a cop saw me shake a black man's hand, and he pulls me over and swears up and down that I bought drugs from him, and I didn't. I already had my weed. And he found a little bit of residue and some papers in my car, and he's which took him forever to get me out the car because I'm sitting there questioning the guy, and I'm not giving him any information at all. It's none of your business why I shook his hand. I know the guy. He's a friend of mine. He used to work for me. That's all the information you need to know. But they've been watching him, and they get me for that residue. Brought the drug dog around. He alerted. They got me for residue and a grinder and a pack of papers. So after I bail myself out that afternoon and I go get my car out of impound that afternoon, I looked in the cigarette box that I kept it in because my car is just like full of papers, boxes, cast iron frying pans. I got a cast iron hand corn grinder you shell corn with. My car is full of all kinds of stuff, empty cans, books, you name it. It's there. And I told him, I said, no, I don't want you to search my car. Well, me shaking hands with the black guy that they'd been watching was reasonable suspicion, so they brought the dog around. He alerts. Dude finds the grinder and he finds the papers, but he don't find the weed. How good of a search was that, you stupid ass? The fucking weed was in the cigarette pack, and you opened up 3 or 4 of the empty cigarette packs, and if you'd have just kept on going, you would have found $50 worth of weed. But nope, didn't find that. So as soon as I got in my car and I checked and my weed was still there, I drove straight to the nearest gas station. I got gas in my car. I got a pack of papers. I sat in that parking lot. I broke me one up by hand since I didn't have a grinder anymore. I rolled it up and drove 55 all the way home the back way. And that's another reason why I'm through with that college that I'm going to now, because that county, I won't spend a fucking nickel in it. They will not get any of my damn tax money if I can help it. I got pulled over last week because they said I was swerving in the lane. And I looked at the cop and I said, no, I just got a lot on my mind. I've got a quiz that I've got to be there in 30 minutes for, and I'm worried I didn't study well enough for it. They have a state patrolman come give me a sobriety test, and I passed it. At least they weren't assholes. They were actually professional, and I thank them for being very professional. And I shook their hand and I said, I hope you guys have a good day, and y'all be safe out there, because they were very professional, very nice. They said, we just wanted to make sure you were safe. And I said, well, I'm just going to college. I just got a lot on my mind because I don't know if I studied enough. So medicinal means no growing. Not for me, it don't. I'll buy a little bit if I got to, but I'll grow my own because I'm pretty sure I can grow better than what they got in them stores. I usually don't talk a whole lot about smoking weed, but I don't care if people know other than my mom and dad, because I never hear the end of it. But yeah, smoked weed for a long time, and since this little thing happened, it was back in November. I've been kind of on the down low, and I've backed off of it, but I'm ready to start back again because I'm missing it, and I can tell because my meds run out on time instead of me having a lot left over like I used to. But as soon as I get my income tax paid or payment back, and I get them paid off, and mandatory 6 months suspension on my driver's license, even though it was not a driving offense. If I'm walking down the street and they stop and frisk me and I've got weed and they arrest me, I lose my driver's license, even though I'm not in a car, for 6 months. I'm probably going to wind up having to pay the $200 reinstatement fee and then $400 to go to the risk reduction course. But once I get the probation paid, oh, it's on, sweetheart. I'm going out and I'm buying some of that killer ass medicinal shit that some of these guys get from Florida that costs $10 for one little old joint. But that'll do me. I'll be happy with it. I don't mind spending the money on good stuff. Good night, Stacy. Glad you could stop by. I don't know if I'll be on tomorrow night, but if so, it'll probably be around 10. But I'll set a reminder so that way, you know, if it works out and I can do a live stream, I'll do a reminder so that way everybody will know. No, weed doesn't hurt anyone. It's a victimless crime, and they've got it as Schedule 2, and it should be Schedule 4 or Schedule 5. Schedule 4 is like Xanax. Schedule 2 is like Percocet. I have both of those. And to tell you the truth, I'd rather have my Xanax over the Percocet any day because I don't like my mind running around in circles. Yeah, California you've been able to grow up to 5 plants on your own property there for decades. Somebody broke your dictionary. What? Why you want to break a dictionary? That's how you learn big words. I'd always ask my mama, how do you spell so and so? She said, tell me, look it up in the dictionary. I said, if I knew how to spell it, I would. She'd get so damn aggravated at me because I was a smart ass kid. Now I'm just a smart ass adult. But I've had cops go through my car on 2 separate occasions, and I've had a little bitty Ziploc bag with seeds that I've saved for the last year right there in the console, and no cop has found it. And it's a green bag in a black console with some change and paper clips on top of it, nothing else. I mean, you can actually see the damn thing, and they haven't found it. I just don't get it. But then again, we don't have the mess hall here tonight. He's ex-police officer, and I don't want to offend him. And I did comment on his video, like I said I would. He wasn't offended. He just had to go. Oh yeah, if and that's what it's boiled down to for all these years. Why pot has been illegal? It's not that they knew that it was harmful. They know it's not. And they know there's a lot of things they can do medicinally with it because they haven't tested it very much. Started to fall asleep. See you next video. Have a good night. I sure will, Virginia. You do the same thing. And Elizabeth, it all boils down to those guys being able to figure out how to tax it and make money off of it. That's all it is. It's all about money. Thank you, Kelly. As a matter of fact, I haven't gotten on the sell kitty. He's sitting right over here on the arm of the chair beside me. Let me see if I can get a. There's sell kitty. Easy Boy usually sits there, but Easy Boy, he's done took up on the bed in there. He's giving me the hint that it's time for me to get through with this and go my behind the bed. And he's probably right because I got to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning anyway. Your keyboard is crappy and you keep missing the letters. Now, is it your keyboard is crappy or is it just you forgetting the alphabet? Because we are getting older. Yeah, I've got to be there by 11, and I have to take a pain pill first thing in the morning to be able to move around. So I get up at 7. I take it while it starts to work. I cook myself breakfast and I watch YouTube videos from Deep South and Lumna Acres. Those are the first two I watch every day, and then I'm off to school after the fogginess of the Percocet wears off. Oh, a new crappy computer. Yeah, the one I've got now is not as good as the one that I gave to the couple in the church down the road. It was a $350 laptop, and this is a $200 laptop. The only thing that was wrong with the one I gave him was it needed a hard drive, and I said, "Here, you guys take this. You can use it. All it needs is a hard drive. It only costs you about 50, $60, and that's exactly what happened. You know, they spent the money and got him a good computer. But yeah, even they come down to the house, I'm able to be in my boxer shorts. I don't care. It's my house, damn it. Well, Elizabeth, if you've got to go, I'm glad you stopped by. Thank you for coming, and I'll be sure the next time I do a live stream that I put a notice up a few hours ahead of time. That way, you guys will all know because tonight's the most that I've had, and I'm grateful to all of you guys for showing up. And it's been really fun talking to you because every night it's a whole new conversation, whole new topic, and I enjoy it, and I hope you guys do too. But thanks for stopping by, Elizabeth. And if you guys want to just leave the computer on and let it keep going so I can get watch time and I can get to my 4,000 hours, that's fine. Y'all just go to sleep and I'll just leave my computer on, you leave yours on, and we'll get some hours racked up for me so maybe one day I can buy a hamburger and YouTube pay for it. First thing is I got to get to 4,000 hours and 1,000 subscribers, and I'm only at 122. I've got Windows 10. I don't know about Windows Professional. So you're down to Windows 7 now? I think I had Windows 7 years ago and I didn't like it. But Windows 10 I kind of like. Yeah, it's not too bad, but I do miss the days whenever you bought a program and you actually got it on disk and you could hold it in your hand. Now you got to buy your program and online and download it. Wow, they have Windows 13 now? And the thing, I bought this computer not even 9 months ago, and hmm, then again, who knows what Bill Gates has got up his sleeve? And Bill Gates, that right there is a smart motherfucker, let me tell you. He got his start by stealing the DOS operating system from somebody else and worked the kinks out of it before they did. And instead of selling it to IBM like they wanted, he charged them $1 for every computer they put the DOS operating system on. That's how he got rich. He kept the operating system for himself, started Microsoft, and just charged IBM $1 a computer. And back then, IBM was, before they went out of business, they were the ones. So he got rich off IBM at $1 a computer. And then whenever all these other computer companies came out, since Bill Gates already had that system up and running, they all went running to him because it was already there with the bugs worked out. And he licensed through them and sold through them too. That's how Bill Gates got his money. He basically stole another man's idea and work and just perfected it. The man is smart. I give him that. Because that leasing to IBM for $1 a computer was pure genius. Because if he'd have sold it, he'd be just as broke as me and you are right now. But the fact that he kept the rights to himself and he just sold it to them at $1 a computer, marketing genius. Him and Steve Jobs. If he was able to buy stock 25, 30 years ago, your brother would be a wealthy man by now. Just like right out of high school, I worked at Walmart distribution, making good money, and I had the option to buy stock. But being that young, I wanted my money for beer and pot, and I should have bought stock because since then, if I'd have just put $100 into it, I wouldn't have to work right now. Because of the prices that the stock was back then, and all the 2-for-1 and 3-for-1 splits, and the increase in the stock value, I'd be a millionaire with $100 investment 30 years later. But hindsight is always 2020. If I'd only thought then that that $100 could have turned into something like this. My mom, in the late 70s, we had a bank in our town, and the bank went public, and they offered her, since she had an account there, the option to buy stock. Well, she discussed it with my dad. She bought $200 worth of stock. Well, it got bought out by another bank, and another bank, and another bank. And 15 years ago, she just happened to leave the letter on the table, and I read it. This was 15 years ago, mind you. Bank of America is who she has stock with now. And 15 years ago, that $200 investment was only 25 years old. That $200 had turned into $14,000. I can only imagine what it's worth now. Probably close to 30. AT&T would be a good stock to have too. I've always said that if I get the extra money, I'm going to start investing in small stocks, just a little bit here and there. Not to be doing any trading or whatever, but just companies that you know ain't going to go under, that are going to be around for decades, and just hang on to it. Because it'll only go up in value. I mean, if the stock market ever crashes again, I'll go take a loan out of the bank just to go buy stock, because eventually the market will correct itself and it'll come back. So you'll get your money back. You might lose temporarily and it be worth less than what you paid for, but in the long run, you're going to come out ahead. She's not going to cash it in. She's going to hang on to it, and it'll probably get sold after she passes away and become part of the estate. But she's pretty shrewd too. She got that from her mom. My grandmother was a financial genius and barely graduated high school. And she'd go around to all the towns and shop for the interest rates on CDs and stuff like that for certificates of deposit. And in her head, in a matter of minutes, she could tell that fella, well, they offer me 0.01% more at this bank over here, and that turns into X amount of dollars a year, and she'd be within $100 of correct in her math in her head, and she'd shop around, she'd get the best deal in the world. I mean, they'd actually increase the interest rate just to get her business because my grandmother and grandfather, they had plenty of cash because they never, spent much money. Everything they had was already paid for, and they had timber that they'd sold, so they had a lot of cash, and they actually had bargaining power at the bank. Nowadays, you don't get that unless you are filthy, stinking rich. Yep, banks come and go, especially if they're small. But large corporations, they're here to stay. And as bad as I hate to admit it, we're stuck with Walmart for at least another 20 years. But I despise Walmart, even though I have to shop there sometimes. I'd rather spend $5 extra on something from a mom and pop store than I would give it to Walmart. Want me to go through a self checkout line and not give me a discount on it. And I'm bagging up my own groceries and ringing them up, and that should be somebody else's job. I will not go to a self checkout. I'll stand in line and wait an extra 30 minutes to check out to have a cashier do it. Because if I go over there and check myself out, I just stole a job from an American citizen. And I'm not going to be part of that bullshit. Hey, Jim, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, you weren't here earlier. I got some English peas that are starting to sprout. Irish potatoes are coming up. I tricked my chickens into getting into their small pen. And if you haven't seen my video that I put up this afternoon, tomorrow I got to start moving the area where I work on refinishing cast iron and start another chicken run on the other side to give them some more space because I only wanted 15 or 20 chickens. And somehow or another, I've gotten over about 60. But yeah, and I didn't break the law today. The hawk flew away under its own power, but it knew it had been hit by that number 6 bird shot because it was a little bit shaky and wobbly for a second there. So I don't think he's coming back. There were 5 of them at one time screaming out there, hollering in the air, and I heard them from inside the house, and I went out there. They weren't over my chicken pen, but I did get down there to the corner of my property, walking real slow, and I was wearing all black, so they really couldn't catch me in the shadows, which I've been able to walk right straight up to them in range. And let's put it this way, they had a massive heart attack from the sudden loud noise of the shotgun going off. Yeah, she corrected me too, Jim. Her name's Elizabeth. But yeah, tomorrow, whenever I get through with school, I've got that project to work on. It's not like they wouldn't be okay in that small enclosed space for a few more weeks until the roosters all show themselves and get big enough to eat. But I just I'd feel better if they had a larger space to run in. So I'm going to take the time to move all that stuff around and pick up my cast iron, and actually kind of forces me to get off my lazy ass and get that refinished and seasoned up and hung on the wall. Because if you've seen some of my videos, the wall behind me with all the cast iron, whenever I bought that stuff, it was rusty. I'm talking about pure, just luckily it wasn't pitted rust. Some of them are pitted, but I still use those too. I usually keep those for myself. Some of them I sell, but I've gotten out of selling it. Now it's more of a collection. And I've got about 15 or 20 more pieces of cast iron cookware that I need to get seasoned and cleaned up and hung on that wall in there. And expanding that chicken run is actually going to force me to, because what better way to clean it up than actually finish the project? Plus, I've got about 100 pounds of lead that I got to pick up and move, because I like the black powder hunt, and I'm getting into reloading my own bullets and stuff, and this is all nice soft lead. Some of it's a little bit, I forget the name of it, but hard lead. What studies are tomorrow? I have epidemiology and biology. Um, if you get Rhode Island Reds, they are one of the most prolific egg layers of all the chickens. You'll get on average, they say 5 to 6 a week. I usually get about 7 a week out of my Rhode Island Reds whenever I have them. And you only need 2 or 3 to have all the eggs that a family of 4 can eat in a week. I mean, you get 3 eggs a day out of 7 days, you're getting almost 2 dozen eggs a week out of them. And as long as you don't have a rooster, nobody's really gonna know they're there, because they don't cluck loud. You'll have no problems with that. Just keep them in a pen where they got a roof on them, and dogs and cats can't get to them, and nobody will probably ever know. Matter of fact, you could probably even keep them in your garage. Just put your little catch pan down, have them above a stand cage, like Living Traditions does with their, or whatever the name of it is, with Kevin and Sarah, like they do with their quail, and just catch the droppings, pile the droppings up, let them age for 3 or 4 months, and they're good to go. Or put a black tarp on it, let it get hot to about 150 degrees for a couple of days, and then you're good to go to put that in the garden, and man, you got some good fertilizer. Rhode Island Reds are my favorites as far as it goes in the chicken world, unless you're, other than that, I like the good old fashioned game chickens, the real old fashioned, and Dominickers. I like Dominickers, and I'm going to get some of those if I can this year. But game chickens, they go broody all the time. You never have to worry about not having a fresh young chicken to eat. They lay good sized eggs. Hawks don't bother them near as bad, because those, if you keep a rooster or two, if you're able to, they'll fight a hawk, and they're liable to win, because game chickens are what everybody gets in trouble for fighting. And to tell you the truth, I had a neighbor growing up that he used to fight chickens, and I don't agree with putting the gaffs, which are basically little spears, on their legs for them to fight with, knives, like a Mexican chicken knife fight. I don't agree with that. But now he had some boxing gloves that they would practice spar with. That's funny as hell to see two chickens with boxing gloves on go at it. I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. Seeing two chickens box is funny as crap. Yeah, Dominickers are a very old breed, and a lot of people will try to sell you a barred rocks and call it a Dominicker, but they're not. They're two different breeds. And I've had people try to get me on that, and it's like, no, sir. That's not a Dominicker. That's a Barred Rock. I know the difference. I don't want them. No, thank you. Well, I'll cut the price up. Nope, don't want Barred Rocks. I've had them. Don't want them. Black Australorp. The only reason why I would keep those is because for some reason crows and hawks don't get along, and a hawk will not stay anywhere where there is a crow. So the Black Australorp or the Jersey Giants, I'll keep a few of them around because they're black and they look like crows, and that kind of deters the hawks. I've lost a few chickens to hawks, but since I put those black ones in there, I've lost a lot less. The flock actually has to split in two when I let them free range in the yard, and no black chicken be with the group that gets attacked. If there's a black chicken in it, they don't get attacked. Sell Kitty, you're getting all over me. Now get down. Oh yeah, Elizabeth, you know about game chickens. Those are some pretty chickens. And if you think Barred Rocks after your ass, game chickens got some attitude, but they are pretty. I love them. I've got a friend that spent $300 on a rooster, and he don't fight chickens. He just likes them because they're gorgeous birds. $300 for a rooster. I'm sorry. I love chickens to death, but I don't love them $300 worth for a rooster. Not unless I'm fixing to go into the chicken business and start selling chickens. And I ain't fixing to sell chickens like that because the people who want to buy them usually want to fight them, and I'm not about that. People who fight chickens and fight dogs ought to have knives strapped to their hands and maybe get in a ring and fight the one of them damn near dies. Actually, my first chickens were game chickens. Come to think of it, I was about 10, and the guy next door that had the fighting chickens, he always had plenty of hens going broody, and I got 4 or 5 hens from him. He didn't even charge me for them. Walker hounds are pretty cool, but now I do like a Georgia red bone. Those are pretty good. And bloodhounds, I like them, and I like my beagles. But actually, whenever the Westminster Kennel Club comes on, I like the hound group. The working dog group is okay, but the hounds and the terriers, rat terriers and Jack Russells and hounds. Other than that, I like a German Shepherd. Get down, Sell Kitty. And I like Dobermans. And Rottweilers are okay, but I'd rather have a Doberman than a Rottweiler. Oh, the Polish chickens with the little crowns on their head and their little fuzzy, feathery feet. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I used to have some Americanas. They were pretty cool with all the different color eggs. I actually got to sell those for an extra dollar a dozen just because they were colored. People would pay for them because, oh, that's so neat. I want those. $2 a dozen for brown eggs, $3 a dozen for yellow and blue eggs. Go figure. And every once in a while, I'd get something that interbred, and I'd wind up with a green egg. My dad used to have an Australian Shepherd that he spoon fed, and then he'd get out there and he would crack pecans when the pecans fell, and he'd hull them out, and he'd feed them to that old Australian Shepherd. His name was Mo. He'd feed him the old dog one at a time. He'd sit there and 20, 30 minutes at the time, he'd sit there and just crack 2 pecans in his hand, feed it to the dog. He'd carry out some evening scraps, feed the dog out the spoon. If I'm going to have a retriever, I want a black lab. I like the black labs or the chocolate labs. Probably a chocolate lab over a black lab. But yeah, my dad and his dogs, he's got a blue heeler now that you won't get within 10 foot of my dad if that dog don't know you, because that dog will eat you alive. All our dogs always ate vegetables. Now fruit, they never went too much for the fruit. But they always ate vegetables. Had a cat that used to eat corn on the cob and butter beans and green beans. I named her Betty Cat. My mom called her Daisy, but I named her Betty Cat because after the first litter of kittens, she didn't get the attention she was used to because everybody was just, oh, kittens, 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 because it was the first cat my family ever owned. We didn't have cats till I was about 14 and had a few mice that we couldn't catch, and they were getting on my dad's nerves. So he told my mom, get a cat from your friend June, which is where a lot of my chickens came from, that same lady. and she carried that litter of kittens down the road behind the neighbor's tobacco barn and left them there. And the neighbor found them. And we were the only people in the neighborhood at the time that had cats, and everybody that lived in that area, we were all related until the trailer park was put in on the other side of the block where just trashy people moved in and then nasty. But we were all related. And he brought the kittens back. So I started calling her Betty Davis because she was a child abuser like Betty Davis was. That was back when the movie about Betty Davis came out that her daughter wrote about how abusive she was. So I named her Betty Cat. Oh, me and that German Shepherd, we'd have us a serious prayer meeting about the tomatoes, which I did after we got through with the live stream last night. I did get my Cherokee purple tomatoes planted. And this morning I found a few more cups and I got my, what is the name of them? The green sausage tomato. See if I can get that where you, they kind of look like a sausage from M.I. Gardner. They're the 99 cent a pack deal. I'll go ahead and tell you 99 cent a pack is a good price, but you only get 25 seeds. Baker Creek, I didn't plant half of them. I planted 5 to the cup and I got 10 cups. So I probably got 100 seeds for $3. And if you go to Walmart, you can get Fairy Morse. They've got organic and non-organic, and they're $1.44 a pack for non-organic and like $2.50 a pack for organic. And you get a whole lot better deal because Luke at M.R. Gardner at 25 seeds for $1, it ain't worth my time. I'm sorry. 25 tomato plants ain't gonna do me no harm. As a matter of fact, with the ones I've got, I'm probably still going to go buy a bunch of hybrid tomatoes that are disease resistant to make sure I have plenty to put up for winter in jars. These, if I get them to where they don't have fungal infections and viruses, I'll be doing good because they're heirloom and they're very delicate around here. So much humidity in southeast Georgia. 26-year-old cat? Wow. Now, Patty Boy was my cat that I kept out of a litter of kittens when I was 17. And he lived to be 19 or 20. 26 is a pretty ripe old age for a cat. Cell Kitty is about 6 months old now. So either he's going to have to learn how to live outside, or I've got to come up with a little bit of money, or somebody brave enough to hold the front end while I work on the back end, because he's going to have a little minor operation before he's allowed to stay in the house much longer, because his tail's already starting to do that little twitch thing, and he ain't sprayed yet, but it's just a matter of time, and I ain't having that in my house. I'll have to write that down after the live stream and check that out. But I usually get most of my stuff from the local feed and seed store. I get a lot better price on it, unless it's an odd variety like the Cherokee purple tomato. They don't sell those. Walmart might sell them, but they want three, or they want like $5, $6 for one plant, and I'm not. No, I'm not doing that. So I use seed catalogs just for special stuff that I can't get at the local seed store that I usually do my business at. Jim, do what I did. I won a book and some seed from Josh at the City Stead. And I took the seed that I wanted, and I had some seed from last year and the year before that needed to be used, and it was more than I needed, but the price was less than what I would pay out of a seed catalog. So, I went with the cheaper price, even though it was more than what I needed. So I put those in an envelope. Actually, I split them up into two or three, and I started like Papa Pepper does the box, where he sends the box to somebody, they send it back, then he picks somebody to send it. Except I didn't want the box to come back to me. So I sent one to Dan at Home in the Sticks and one to Mari's Vegetable Garden. And I just asked them to do a mail call video. That way, it would give all the people exposure, and then to take what they wanted, add some to it, and send it on somewhere else. And I left a piece of paper in there with a list of all the places it's been and the names of the YouTube channels and the people who donated. That way to give all of us little guys exposure. So you might want to do a seed giveaway with what you don't use. Yeah, my cat Easy Boy, the old one, 15 or 16, the best cat I've ever had. He catches squirrels still, rabbits and mice still at his age, and he's got the most easygoing temperament of any cat I've ever had. And the best thing about it is he doesn't complain if I come home late like a wife would. If I smell like another cat because I've been petting another cat, he doesn't get jealous like a wife would. I'm I'm happy with my cat. I think you got 5 more times to go there, Jim, because cat's got 9 lives, and if you buried him 4 times, you still got a few more lives, or the cat does. But special pets, whenever they go, they don't get a headstone or a marker. They get a fruit tree. Sell kitty, didn't I just put you down? As long as you don't think you're gonna crawl up here in my lap, you can sit there on the arm of the chair, but don't come over here because I'm tired of you getting all over me. I can't stand that. Everybody does cat videos. I might have to check that one out. All of my cats that I've ever had, once they started to hunt, they would bring what they caught as an offering to me, and then I would wait till or I would pick the cat up, and then I would get whatever he brought me and put it back in his mouth where he'd take it, and I'd carry him outside, and I'd say, "All right, that's yours. I don't want it." And after about 4 or 5 times of that, they'd quit bringing them to me. They understand. They were just that was their offering to me. You know, I feed them every day, so hey, I'm gonna bring you something to eat. Here, Morgan, have this. Try it. It's good. No, thank you. Easy boy, it's yours. Just take him on out. But the time I was with my ex and she walked into the house and we'd been at the neighbors and she'd had a few too many beer to drink that night. And she went and it was summertime and she was barefoot and she went and we'd left the front door open because we were only 50, 60 feet away. And she took a step inside the front door and this cat had left a dead rabbit that he had just caught. Easy Boy was still new to hunting at the time. So he brought his offering and he put his offering right there where we would find it. And she stepped on that thing and she screamed like bloody murder. Oh my God, the neighbors thought that she'd been shot. She was screaming and hollering and then it turned to cussing and fussing and the cat come a running out. But he'd caught a baby rabbit and had that thing right there in the doorway, and she stepped on it barefoot, and it scared the shit out of her. I understand it now, Jim. It reminds me of a story my dad told me about a fella he worked with. His his son lived in Oklahoma, and he went to have Thanksgiving with his son one Thanksgiving. He and his wife did. They were going deer hunting Thanksgiving morning. Well, he told his son he wasn't informed about going deer hunting, so he didn't bring anything to hunt with. And he said, "That's it's all right. I got you covered." He had an old single shot 20 gauge. He gave him that and a 5 round box of buckshot. Put him up in the tree stand and said, "All right, Dad, we'll be back to get you around 9:30." Well, the fella sees a buck. He draws a bead on him and he pulls the trigger. And of course, the deer ran a little bit. A few minutes later, he sees the antlers and he's like, "I must have missed," and he came back. So he drew a bead and he shot again. He wound up shooting that buck 5 times. And then whenever his son came to get him, he cut the hunt short because he kept hearing his dad shoot. He said, "Well, Dad, I just came to check on you." And he goes, "Well, the buck kept coming back and I kept shooting at him, but I think I missed him." And they went and got to walking. And within 5, 10 yards of each other, there's 5 bucks laying on the ground. The man shot 5 deer in the space of about 15 minutes. All of them bucks. All of them nice sized bucks at that. It's a once in a lifetime thing. Yeah, my ex didn't like it because I would catch a snake. She didn't like that too much. And she loved turtles until the day that I was coming home from work and old soft shell river turtle about that big around was crossing the highway and I stopped and put him in the back of my truck and drove home and I said, "I got something for you." And it's in the back of the truck. She goes out there and looks. She's like, "What is that?" And about that time that old head come out and it shot out about 3 foot almost. Mouth as big around as a grapefruit. She said, "Oh hell no, you get rid of that thing." Get it out of here. I like turtles, but that is not a turtle. That is a sea monster. Get it out of here. It scared the crap out of her. Yeah, but like I was talking about earlier, I got to start writing some of all these stories down and stuff because I've got a book up here with all the memories and things that I've done that there you go to jail for doing today, like backing over stop signs to see who could collect the most stop signs in a night. Everybody else, we're all getting drunk, and everybody else is trying to unbolt them from the post. And me and my brother-in-law, he was just a school buddy at the time. We just back over it, post it all, throw it in the back of the truck, and haul ass, and did it in front of the only cop in Nichols, Georgia, and he didn't even bother to pull us over. He probably figured if we were stupid enough and brave enough to do that right in front of him with him watching, which we didn't know he was there, that he would just let us go. And it's like, oh shit, because we didn't see him until after we'd already run over the sign, threw it in the back of the truck, were opening the doors to get back in the truck and get a swig of the beer we had with us. Because even back then, you were drinking and driving. The cops around here would just, they would drive you home, not even tell your parents. They would have another deputy come pick them up, carry them back to their car, so you never even got in trouble for it. Nowadays, oh hell no. If I ever get the motivation to sit down and start writing some of this stuff, I'll remember Lulu and do that because if you guys have ever seen the movie Love Song for Bobby Long with John Travolta, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's an amazing movie. And it really inspired me to start writing down some of the stories that I've been through and the things that I've done. And because my parents, I'm a disappointment to because I could have made a lot more money in my life. But I tell you what, I wouldn't change anything for the world because it's made me who I am today. And I'm not rich. I'll never be rich. But I've had an exciting and worthwhile life, and I would not change one moment. Might change one or two women, but I wouldn't change one moment. Well, to me, the old days are the 1970s because I was born in 1970, and I remember 1976 very well because, for one, it was an election year, and back then there were only three TV stations. So when the president was on, he was on every channel, and for two, it was the bicentennial, and that was a big to do. I mean, everything from the quarter down to the fireworks displays. I remember those. And I remember the 75 into Vietnam. I remember seeing that on the news where they were pushing the helicopters off the ships as they were coming in. I remember that. And I was only three when they pulled troops out of Vietnam, but I vaguely remember those stories from the news because every afternoon when my dad came home from work, it was right around 6 in the evening, and that's we had supper right whenever he got home. So that way, when he got through with supper, he'd already heard the news and he could go outside and do work because we farmed also. We grew corn, and so I grew up with the news, and I vaguely remember Vietnam, but our most of my memories come from the 70s and 80s. And they were some tough years with the oil crisis and stuff like that. I remember that. I remember going to town every day, and then all of a sudden that stopped because gas prices went up so high, and it was lucky if we went to town every once a week. But I remember lots of things from the 70s. That was a wonderful decade, except for the clothes, because bell bottoms still give me the willies. You wear bell bottoms, and it sounds like somebody's following you because your pants legs are rubbing rubbing it together, going swish, 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 swish. And he's like, somebody behind me. Oh, so you're not that much older than me. My sister was born in '63. She's 7 years older than me. Well, y'all make me feel like a young buck. Hey, like I told you, I've hung out with the hippies in the VW microbuses, the real ones from the '60s. They were still doing it back in the early '90s whenever I was in college and doing the partying instead of the studying. And I got to admit, I wouldn't trade 1 second of that time for nothing because I met some really interesting people. I met people that actually knew Jerry Garcia and a bunch of the old rockers from back then that had not only seen him in concert, but actually hung out with them, drank, smoked with them, you know, actually knew them. You know, I've met some really interesting people in my life, so I can't complain at all. Yeah, I remember during the gas crisis, my dad had a 500-gallon gas tank because our tractor wasn't diesel; it was actually a gas burner, old Ford Jubilee. He paid $900 for it and wound up 30 years later selling it for 1,000. So he made $100 profit off the thing after he didn't use it for 30 years. But he would buy it in bulk and get a cheaper price. Plus, he'd buy it under agricultural rules, so he didn't have to pay the tax on it. And he drove 60 miles one way to work every day, so he'd just pull his car up that tank, fill it up, and off he'd go. I never met Johnny Cash, but you guys probably don't know the group Driving and Crying. But I went to one of their concerts at one of the colleges I went to, and whenever the concert was over, all the college kids they all hauled ass and went to the frat houses to party and carry on. And I'm one of the last ones to leave, me and my roommate, because we were already high as hell. And one of the guys from the band said, "Hey, you guys, either one of y'all got a beer?" We said, "Sure, back in our dorm room. You're welcome to come over and drink one with us." The whole band came. They were in our dorm room drinking beer with us. They brought their guitars, played the rest of the night. We smoked dope and drank beer all night long, and everybody, as they were coming back from their fraternity parties, heard it, and they'd all knock on the door and try to get in, and it's like, no, sorry, we don't have enough room. It's too small in here. You got to go. And I met Brooke Shields one time. And to tell you the truth, she's really stupid as fuck. She's not very bright at all. Oh, now Jackal would be cool. Anybody that can play a chainsaw like a guitar, yeah, they're cool. And a lot of these guys are giving their farewell concert tours, and they're not going to tour anymore like Elton John and I think Paul Simon and a few others. I'd love to get in on that. I've missed a few of them, and I know I'll never get a chance to see them. But if the Stones come anywhere close to me, I'm going. I've only seen them once, and that was one hell of a damn concert. Best one I've ever seen were the Rolling, and I haven't seen many. I've seen the Rolling Stones, I've seen Aerosmith, and a few others, but not very many. That's the bad part about wanting to sign body parts. You lose the autograph after you take a shower. You just look at them and say, defile my body and let me get pregnant so I can get alimony from you for the rest of your life. That's how you work that out, Elizabeth. Rat would have been cool. I remember Rat. They were good. In the Navy. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that service to our country. The only football game I give one diddly damn about is Army Navy football game, and I feel so cheated because Navy's lost 2 years in a row. Personally, I'm a core fan. I'm a core guy, but Navy is my team. I don't care about any other football game of the year. I don't give a damn about the Super Bowl, none of that. Army, Navy, that's the Super Bowl. Them boys got heart when they play. Yeah, we used to make the guys in the Navy mad. We tell them they were always happy to give us a ride wherever we had to go. And they say the only ones in the Navy that we actually liked were the um, corpsmen. Nah, we pretty much got along with all the guys in the Navy. It wasn't no big deal. Corpsmen were our favorite because we did consider them Marines because they were in our unit and they were part of our unit. So we considered them family. They're core too. Even after they got transferred back to a Navy unit, they were still core in our opinion. We used to make the Army guys mad because we tell them that Army stood for ain't ready to be a Marine yet. I hope it wasn't like the old World War II LSTs, low slow low slow targets. Yeah, Army Navy, boy, I love watching those guys play, especially when the seniors are out there playing an Army Navy game. Their last chance to beat each other. I'm talking about they're half the size of an NFL lineman, and they hit twice as hard because they're solid muscle and they're giving it their all. I mean, they're going wholehearted and whole hog. They're gonna do everything they can to win. If they break a bone, they don't give a damn. Put me back in, coach. I'm ready to go for this Army Navy, and that's all that matters to them. Ooh, yeah, you were in one of them rough little boats. I wouldn't want to be in one of them. You were in the brown water Navy, what I call them, the ones that's got to go up the rivers and stuff like that. No, sir, I don't want to be part of the brown water Navy. Although in Vietnam, that would have been pretty cool, running one of those PT gunboats. Right after the first Gulf War, I was with the Marines until they found out I had asthma and they PDQ'd me on a medical, which was very heartbreaking because I love my Marine Corps. But when I went to the MEP station to take my physical, they put us in that soundproof booth to give us the hearing test, and they made me go in by myself a second time because I was. They said they didn't know what was wrong. I kept pushing the button because I'd push the button every time I heard something. And I've never listened to my radio loud or anything like most kids do, you know. And come to find out, I was hearing the beeps through the other guy's headphones and pushing the button. They told me I had the hearing of a dog, and then one of the guys pulled out a dog whistle and blew it, and sure enough, I heard the damn thing. Can't hear him now, though. Age has caught up to me. 62-degree rolls? No, sir, I don't think I want to. No, that's just too much of an angle. But you put flat bottom with rock, and I'm thinking fat bottom girls, and I'm like, wow, he really did hang out with some of the cool groups. Fat bottom girls make the world go round. Nurse Franny was such a naughty nanny. Yeah, I bet you got some stories to tell about your time that you were in. What years were you in, Jim? 70s? Oh, yeah, back then electronic tech was probably one of the easiest jobs. 81, 89. Oh, yeah, you were right there at the beginning of real technology. You got out right when the real technology started. But I've done a lot of reading about what was the admiral's name? Admiral Rickover, I believe. Wasn't he the one that started the nuclear sub and program? Okay, Elizabeth. Good night and thanks for stopping by. Admiral Zumwalt. Because I know they got the Zumwalt class now. But I'm talking about the admiral that handpicked Jimmy Carter for the nuclear sub program. He was a real hard ass. I remember that. I read a lot about him and a lot about those subs and laying the cables across the um it's that area in Russia. They were tapping cables in Russia with those subs, and these guys they would bring back on board from their deep sea dive, even though they were in decompression for days. The lobsters and stuff they'd bring back would have like 6 foot legs, and they'd bring them back on board ship, and everybody'd have fresh lobster and stuff. I mean, I read a lot of books on the nuclear subs and the. I can't remember the name of the one that was. It was the famous one for all of its covert missions, and the bar in San Diego where they all would go drink Johnny Walker before they shipped out. Yeah, it's real interesting stuff. I've read a lot and I've seen pictures of the insides of those subs and the technology they had, and it's like, man, that is so primitive compared to what we have today. But back then, my God, it was cutting edge technology. And they said the smell of it was just, it'd take you 2 days to get used to it, which I can imagine. You know, I mean, it's recycled oxygen. You got 100, 200 guys in a long cigar underwater for months on end. You know, they don't even have to surface for anything. I could imagine the smell would kind of become a little bit distasteful to the common nose. It would offend. But talking about that general or that admiral, oh no, your uncle was one of the brave ones because that was real shit right there. I've met a couple of the World War II sub guys, and they were something else. The stories they told, that was some scary shit for them. Time for another Tylenol. Got off work a little while ago, and my back is killing me. But I actually met Jimmy Carter, and I had my picture made with him and his wife Rosalind. Don't call her Rosalind; she'd get mad. Her name's Rosalind. I went to see him teach Sunday school in Plains, where he still lives in the same house that he's lived in for. I think they bought it. No, they bought that one right after he was after he left the presidency. He bought that house, and he's been going to that same church ever since. And I actually got to see him teach Sunday school along with about 400 other people. And church started at 10, and if you weren't there by 6 in the morning, chances are you weren't going to get in. You'd be in the overflow area, which held about 400 people. Manassas Baptist Church or Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia is where he goes. And he was 92 years old. He'd had a heat stroke the Thursday before I saw him teach Sunday school working with Habitat for Humanity in Canada. You talk about a tough old bird. Sunday morning, he was back home teaching Sunday school. Yeah, Admiral Rickover. Sell Kitty, I told you, don't get in my lap. Yeah, Admiral Rickover. He was the one that started the nuclear sub program. And he handpicked Jimmy Carter right after he graduated, not too long after he graduated from Annapolis. Yeah, Jimmy Carter, mad respect for that man. Now, I know people that despise him, but I tell you what, I have nothing but respect for the man. Not only for his good Christian neighbor and his humanitarian efforts, but he did not lead this country in the wrong direction one little bit. And usually I vote Republican, but Jimmy Carter, I give him props. He brought Sadat and Begin together for a peace accord with Egypt and Israel. That speaks volumes. Which I'm really surprised that he lost to Reagan. But I think what caused that was they make a big deal about Trump and the Russians. Well, look what Reagan did with the Iranians in the hostage crisis. He negotiated that whole release. They were being released from Iran while he was taking the oath of office. So you tell me there weren't some backdoor channels back then opened up with that country, and that his campaign didn't have anything to do with it. You know, and what really hurt Carter was sending that rescue mission in, and it not the fact that it failed, the fact that it was an accidental crash. Those two helicopters collided with each other when they went to abort the mission. That's what caused his loss, and it's a damn shame because I think another 4 years of Carter and we'd have been a lot better off now. I agree wholeheartedly with you. Career politicians, they're one thing, but the deep state ain't career politicians. It's those guys who aren't elected that have been there for 25 and 30 years, and they know all the folks everywhere from all these other countries. They know who to talk to get things done. I've heard rumors that the CIA and the Russian counterpart that the two heads have regular contact with each other. And if one of the intelligence officers of either side gets out of line, say a Russian spy gets out of line, the CIA guy calls his Russian counterpart, tells him the Russian counterpart has the guy terminated. I can't complain one bit about Reagan's presidency. He set out to do what he said he was going to do, and he brought communism to its knees, and it fell. The day I saw the Berlin Wall fall, I knew right then Ronald Reagan was going down in history as one of the greatest presidents the country's ever had. And a lot of people didn't agree with his trickle down economics, as they called it, but it was really supply side economics. Inflation was rampant. And whenever you've got too much supply of anything, you're not going to get a fair price for it. And eventually you get to the point where you lose money manufacturing it. So Ronald Reagan did the most logical thing in the world: cut supply. Supply side economics. Whenever you don't have extra, you get a fair shake and a good deal on what you're selling, and you make a profit. And yeah, it takes a while for it to catch hold and actually take effect, but it works. And it did work, because people think that the 90s were all about Bill Clinton and his economic policies, but it wasn't. It was the side effects of Ronald Reagan from the 1980s and his economic theory, because Ronald Reagan was an economist. He had a degree in economy or economics, so his idea worked. Yes, we did. And if people would shut up and listen and let Trump do his damn job, we'd have another one, because if we ain't careful, we're going to become third behind China and Russia. China is the one that scares the hell out of me right now, because they're building bases all through Africa. They're surrounding India, which is the only real country that poses a threat to them. And India doesn't like China to begin with. But they're putting bases all around that shipping lane where most of our international trade goes. And what's going to happen when that occurs? Either there's going to be 3 trolls at the bridge, or there's going to be a war. It's not going to end well unless we upgrade our technology and upgrade our military. We don't necessarily have to increase the size of it. We've got to increase the lethality of it. Because if we're working with equipment that has a capability of destroying an enemy at 20 miles away, but our enemy's got equipment that can destroy a target at 40 miles away, who's going to win? Simple math. We've got to upgrade our military. I don't care what Alexandria Occasional Cortex, as I call her. I don't care what she says. Oh, we could take the excess money from the Pentagon and we could do da. Shut up, you dummy. You don't know what you're talking about. I can't stand her. The darling Democrat, just because she's a pretty bartender girl. And Kamala Harris running for president. She's an idiot. Cory Booker, he's an idiot. Every Democrat so far that has announced their Elizabeth Warren, really? Come on, Tomachichi, like you're going to win. Yeah, Russia and China don't get along very well at all. Since you were in the Navy, you probably have heard The reason Howard Hughes built the Glomar Explorer was to pick up a Russian sub off the bottom of the ocean, which happened to have been a Russian sub that was going to launch nuclear missiles against the U.S. and blame it on the Chinese. Not many people know that story, even though it's been written about widely in the last 15, 20 years, since a lot of that's been declassified. And the remains of those Russian soldiers off of that sub were actually sent home. But a lot of people don't know that. And the ones that read it, they don't believe it. Oh, no, the Chinese are communists just like the Russians. They get along. No, they don't get along at all. They talk and they're friendly because they're communists, but that's as far as it goes. They have no love for each other at all. And the only thing they really have in common is North Korea, and neither one of them want to deal with North Korea, but they have to because they share a border with them. And I don't think it's going to be long before North Korea comes to the conclusion that having electricity in people's houses and food on their plates is more important than having that capability to strike the U.S. when we want to. Yeah, try it, Fat Boy, Rocket Man, whatever people want to call him. He doesn't bother me at all. They have enough ammunition that in a full-scale shootout, they might last 7 days, and then they run out of bullets. They don't have anything. Yeah, that's right. They did bury him at sea, but they returned a few personal belongings that came up. They returned a few things, but they kept the sub and they kept all the technology and they kept the evidence. And if I remember correctly, it was something about the keys that fire the missiles. One of them didn't work properly, and that's the only thing that kept it from actually happening. But yeah, you're probably right. We'll probably wind up being Russian allies over China before it's all said and done, because China's ambition is way out there, and people just don't realize it because they sell such cheap goods. You can get something so cheap made in China. Yeah, well, look at that poor bastard that's making it. He can barely feed himself, and he's working himself to the bone trying to just have something to feed his family. He ain't making no money. He's not getting better off. And they talk about a rising middle class in China. Nah, that's bullshit. Pure bullshit. But eventually it will come to the point that the U.S. and Russia probably do side together against China, because China, they're trying to play it smart and go the economic route and be the center of world trade. And I don't see it happening. The European Union just hasn't caught on to that yet, but Donald Trump has. And every time I hear about our ships going through the South China Sea, I love it. Love it to death. Freedom of Navigation Act, baby. Enforce it. Push it to the limits. Man-made islands do not count as territory in my book. Yeah, that is a big worry. But at the same time, whenever it comes down to it, and people start to get smart and realize China's trying to be the center of the world's commerce, and they quit dealing with China, what good is that gold going to do them? If nobody does business with them, that gold is worthless. Yep, we do have man-made islands, and they travel the world with 5,000 people on them, and several hundred aircraft, and I would not want to piss one of those islands off. But speaking of gold, I wish America would go back to the gold standard. That way, it would bring a lot more gold back into this country because whenever an American goes to a foreign country and they exchange American dollars for the local currency to be able to pay for goods and services as a tourist, that country then can take those dollars and redeem them for U.S. gold because it's an international standard, a monetary trade standard. So that depletes the gold. Whereas you or I, if we take our American money and we want to exchange it for gold, we don't get equal value. They get a better deal on it than we do. We pay more per troy ounce of gold than a foreign country exchanging American currency for gold. And that's not right. I hope it does soon, and that's going to turn the economy on its heels for probably a couple years. But the economy will adjust, and life will be a whole lot better for a lot of Americans. Because if we go back to the gold standard, I believe that'll bring a lot more manufacturing back to our country, and a lot more jobs back to our country, and it'll keep a lot of people from wanting to come to our country because when the currency is based on the petrodollar, the sky's the limit. The Fed can buy bonds and sell bonds to add money and take money out of the economy to keep it in balance. But whenever it's all based on gold, that's a world standard, not just an American standard. It's not going to be long before the stock market starts to hit bottom or at least go down because since Trump's been in office, he's done some good things, but the rest of the world, they don't agree with it because they're used to sucking on the American teeth. And Trump's putting a stop to that. And a lot of foreigners, they're not wanting to invest anymore in American stuff because, you know, all these trade deals are falling apart, all these tariffs, and we need them because, hey, our workers need protection from cheap foreign made goods. They haven't made a TV in this country since 1976. I mean, really, we can't even make our own damn TVs. Everything's made overseas now. And if we go back to the gold standard, a lot of that's going to come back. And we'll be at the gold standard for too long, especially if the stock market crashes, because all these companies that aren't being invested in by foreign investors, their main job is to produce a profit for their investors. And whenever they're not able to, there's going to be some big companies go down. And I can't say is I'm going to be unhappy about it. I'm just going to say I hope I don't have any investments in that company. But that'll be the beginning of the new age, or as occasional Cortex says, the Green New Deal. And my version of green there is money. There'll be a new deal when it comes to money whenever the stock market crashes again because China's not in good shape right now. These tariffs are really hurting China. And they're hoping like hell Trump don't put a tariff on that other $250 billion worth of goods every month. If that happens, China's economy tanks, and if it tanks, a lot of other countries are going to tank too because China does a lot of lending with their banks for investment in other countries for infrastructure. And there'll be a lot of people that won't be able to get loans. They won't be able to pay the loans back. China is going to be in a crunch, and it's going to cause the next market failure. And it'll be because Trump's doing the right thing, because I'm a nationalist just like he is, bringing the jobs back to this country, and it's going to hurt to do it, but it's the right thing to do in the long run. The snowflakes will just have to suck it up. Well, Jim, it's 1 o'clock, and I've got to be up around 7. And I've enjoyed talking to you because it sounds like we both have the same mindset whenever it comes to a lot of things. And that is good to know because I don't feel like I'm the only conservative in the bunch now, because being at that college over there, all those young people, they have no damn idea what life is all about, and they think everything ought to be free. They're kids today, just they don't know how to work, they don't know how to spend money, they don't know how to save money, they don't know a damn thing, and they ain't getting the education that they need. And it's a damn shame that all these liberal professors are indoctrinating them in social justice when they have no idea. Like every kid on the little league t-ball team gets a trophy for participation. No, hell. There's winners and there's losers. Losers don't get trophies. I'm sorry. And it's the same way in life. Losers don't get promotions. Losers don't get $1 million jobs. Losers got to work harder to become winners. And that's what these instructors ought to be teaching them in college, but they're not doing it. They're teaching them just how to get by and not to offend somebody else with all the political correctness. They're not handicapped, they're handy capable. If they're handy capable, then why are they on SSI? But sooner or later, whenever I was in college 25 years ago, the first time around, it was a whole lot different because it wasn't about social justice. It was about legalities and fact, being factually correct, being legally correct, constitutionally correct. It wasn't about morally right and wrong like occasional Cortex wants to say. It's about what does the law say. If you don't like the law, change it. If everybody agrees, fine, change the law. If they don't agree, oh well, suck it up, Buttercup. That's just the way it is. Um, right now I'm back in fast food. I've managed fast food restaurants for about 25 years. And 3 years ago, I got in a car accident and broke my back. So I really haven't done anything for the last 3 years other than be a federal peanut inspector, because I can work 3 months a year and get paid basically for 6 months a year. And I sell produce and stuff like that that I grow off my little 2-acre farm here. And I'm going back to school to get my master's and hopefully teach college so that maybe I can actually influence somebody in the right way. But I can't wait till the day that I finally get completely out of fast food for good, because it got to the point that I'd show up at work 3 years ago and I had another manager that would just right off the bat reach in his pocket, pull out a bottle of Xanax and hand me one and say, "Here, Morgan, take this. You're going to need it because I know you're fixing to get, you're going to nut up on somebody." It got to the point I can't deal with stupidity. And in the last 25 years, being in fast food, dealing with the public, I have seen stupid rise to levels that were not heard of in the 80s and the early 90s, where people actually worked for a living and they didn't think everything had to be done their way. They would tell you what they wanted on their sandwich. Oh, no onions, please. Now they don't tell you that, and they bring it back and want you to make the sandwich over again. It's like, you lazy bastard, pick the damn onion off and throw it away yourself. Don't bring it back and have it remade. You're just wasting our damn time and money. If you got a food allergy, tell us. We don't want you to get hurt. We don't want you to have anaphylactic shock or die in our store. We don't want to see you die anyway from a food allergy. Tell us up front. But no, they expect us to be mind readers. And needless to say, the stupidity has risen to the point that I couldn't handle it no more. And I'd walk into work, dude, hand me a Xanax right off the bat. Here, take this. You're going to need it for your shift. I know you. You're going to get pissed off and you're going to wind up losing your job because you're going to be slapped somebody. Yeah, factory work, being around the same group of people all the time, knowing which ones are team players and which ones aren't, that would get on my nerves too. Because if I'm working, your ass better be working right there alongside me, or me and you ain't gonna get along. Because if I got to do this, you got to do this. Because you damn sure ain't gonna make the same money I do, and me do twice the work you do. You gonna do as much as I do, or me and you gonna have problems. And with my back injury, I don't work near as fast as I used to. And 3 years ago, I was working 2 and 3 circles around people half my age, and they were amazed at all the stuff that I could do. And it's like, it's a matter of being brought up to work. People aren't brought up to work anymore. They're brought up to be given things. They're the age. They're not millennials. They're the entitled generation. Mom and daddy gave them everything they wanted and didn't teach them how to respect what they got. Didn't teach them how to earn anything for themselves. Any parent like Justin Rhodes and BW Family Farm and Homesteading, I respect the hell out of those people because they're teaching their kids how to make their own money at a young age. And that's more important than any damn thing they'll learn in the classroom. Well, anyway, Jim, it's really been good talking to you. And I'm going to try and start doing a live stream a couple times a week. I just got to figure out my schedule, and I'll start putting up notices. So that way, if you want to join in, you're more than welcome. And we'll get together again, and maybe there'll be some more folks, and we'll have us a good old-fashioned conversation. Maybe we'll even get a few younger folks to jump in and join the conversation. But then again, I doubt it because they all want to watch the pretty people like Jess off Roots and Refuge or the Holler Homestead, all these young folks, because they want to see people their own age. I understand that, but at the same time, they forget the wisdom that people like us have. And Danny and Wanda, they've only grown a little bit since I've been watching them, but Jess over at Roots and Refuge went from 45,000 people in August to over 100,000 people now. I mean, really, come on. You're not that damn good of a gardener. And frankly, I wouldn't go hear you speak anywhere about how to do anything in the garden because you're still learning. You're a baby. You don't know nothing about how to grow a garden. You don't know nothing about a farm. You're flying by the seat of your pants. But anyway, I'll be putting a reminder up to let everybody know when the next live stream is. And I'm fixing to go grab me a little bit of shut eye after a glass of milk, and I'm gonna call it a night, my friend. Yep, every morning he is the first one I watch. Then the second one I watch is Al Lumna, and then I have my breakfast, and I'm off to school. Then in the afternoons when I got time, I might watch Living Tradition Homestead. I like Kevin. Personally, don't like Sarah. Her body language, uh, she's a little uppity in my opinion. Her body language speaks tons. I like VW. I like Ben, but I don't particularly care for his wife. She talks too much. Just get to the point, lady. You act like you're special and all this. I ain't about all that. But now Ben, I like. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this stream. You have a good night, my friend, and I hope I see you in the next live stream if you've got the time and the opportunity to join us. It was good having you tonight. You take care, my buddy.